Were you surprised by the IMF's downgrade for our growth prospects in this year?
Well, I wasn't surprised that they downgraded. One of the reasons they themselves had said only a few months ago was for the figures which they had was that the degree of fiscal loosening, quite large degree of fiscal loosening that there was announced in September, which was then reversed, was going to be a reason why the economy might grow a little bit faster than they might otherwise have thought. So with that reverse, then it's no surprise that we get a downgrade. I think that the extent of the downgrade is perhaps a little bit surprising because I think that their figures still rely on the market implied path for interest rates. So the interest rates rising up in the way that people had expected a few months ago. And I think it's pretty clear now that interest rates aren't going to get nearly as high as people expect. So I think that because the interest rates don't get nearly as high, then that will mean that the degree of recession is a bit less.
That is interesting that you pick up upon what the IMF said in the wake of the mini-budget, that fiscal loosening, that stimulus would have had a pro-growth effect. The Rishi Sunak administration reversing those decisions now has a negative effect on growth. But I wonder what this looks like, sort of not just in the next 11 months, but more in the next sort of 5 to 10 years. What are the prospects for the UK economy? What are the long-term factors that might well spur us forward or hold us back?
So I think there's perhaps a contrast between three kinds of things. So one would be that you get the removal of certain headwinds that the UK's economy has faced. So we've had the problems with COVID, obviously, we had the problem with the energy market, and there were some transitional costs associated with leaving the European Union. With those three factors removed from the equation, you should expect growth to be a little bit faster over the next 5 or 10 years than it has been over the past 5 years or so. A second thing is that policy is now likely to change. So in the short term, we're not likely to get any real change in policy because the government abandoned its aspirations that there were a few months ago to have significant supply side reforms. There were supposed to be these 10 areas of supply side reforms that the Truss administration was going to announce. Basically, for political reasons, the government has abandoned all of that and seemed to be feasible to it. So that means that relatively little will happen in the next couple of years. When the Labour Party wins, as presumably they will in 2024, they'll then introduce a series of changes to the economy, and it's unknown to what extent those might lead to a growth boost or some growth reduction. So that's a kind of area of uncertainty which might go either way. A third factor is that I think that over the next 5 or 10 years, we should expect that a number of technological shifts, which have been perhaps hanging around, waiting, not quite arrived for a few years and talked about, may well come to maturity. And if those technological changes start to bite, then we could expect there to be some growth boost from those. So put together, I think that there's some there's some hope over the medium term, but things are obviously a bit dicey in the short term.